Breaking the cycle to step forward. Authentic conversations from lived experience and a professional perspective in overcoming abuse with Chris Tuck and Beverley Ann.
Hello and welcome to Breaking the Cycle to Step Forward. I'm Beverley Ann and I'm with my lovely co-host.
Hi everyone, Chris Tuck here. Hope you're well.
And as you can see, we're very zen today because I am on retreat. But we've colour coordinated without realising it. I'm in purple, which is healing and recovery. And Chris is in pink, which is beautiful.
Bright pink.
Bright pink.
And I might not be on a retreat, which looks fantastic, Beverley, by the way, but I do have my Zen master here with me in my office.
Yes, and I'm surrounded by Buddhas in all different shapes and forms. And I am surrounded in beautiful green. And I'm actually in Spain, but I could be anywhere in the world. And this is going out on Friday, which I will be home by then. But look at the temperature here. It's going to be 26 degrees today. And you're lucky if it's going to be 14.
Yeah, thanks for rubbing that in very much. Do really appreciate it. Yeah, not. What's today's podcast about, Bev?
Well, the wonderful thing about today is it's all about vulnerability. And we're going to talk about vulnerability in different ways, as we always do. And just before, if you're watching this, you can see I'm holding my mic up to my lips. That's because I am outside and I want to make sure that everyone can hear me as clear as possible. So vulnerability, Chris, this is something we've been talking about, and there's different ways of vulnerability, isn't there?
There is, and for some people, even that word can feel dangerous, and they may feel that they can't be vulnerable just because as a child growing up in a abusive, dysfunctional household, being vulnerable was met with more aggression, more abuse. So for them, i.e. me and you and others, being vulnerable in the first instance, before we started our recovery journey, probably smacked of danger.
Absolutely. And that's why I look at vulnerability now as the courage to be vulnerable. Because for me, I feel safe, but sometimes it's still scary when you feel vulnerable. And the example I'm going to give to that is I wouldn't show any emotion years ago. Because showing emotion means people know that you're feeling hurt, injured, and it's absolutely not me. As for crying, I don't cry. So, I'm too tough for that. I'm too resilient. Whereas where I'm on a retreat, we got told last night, tonight we're doing a fire ceremony, and no, we're not walking on fire. We write down all that we want to let go and then all what we want to bring into our life. Now, in my 20s, I would have said that's too woo-woo for me. But now I love doing that because it gives me an opportunity to sit in the now as an adult and just explore and find out if there's anything I want to let go. Ironically, in my yoga session this morning, my teenage self came out and I was just doing yoga and I just felt this teenager inside me releasing some anger, being vulnerable and saying it's not fair, right? And then I started to cry.
Yeah.
I wasn't sobbing, but the tears were just rolling. So I stopped and just laid on my mat in different poses and allowed those tears to go. It was really funny because just for a little moment, I thought, oh, I'm not doing what the other 19 women are doing. And then the adult self was like, no, you do you. You be you. And I felt vulnerable, but it felt good to be that vulnerable. Whereas I could never have done that. I just want to share that with someone who at the moment is probably listening to this thinking, vulnerable, that's not vulnerable. That's a different vulnerable. And it is. But it's also important in my healing, my recovery, whatever you want to call it, for me now to be able to have that courage, in the words of Brené Brown, to just be me and ask myself, what is it that I want to say?
So some of my participants that are on my current course, and I've got to be careful with what I say here, um, they can't get in touch with their younger self. They can't get in touch with their emotions. So, how I see what you've just shared is you're being vulnerable and authentic to your own self because you are, whether you call it the adult speaking to the child or just your inner voice, whatever resonates with people listening to this. Um, you're showing yourself your authentic self and allowing that to happen. And I think that inner dialogue, that inner acceptance, that inner authenticity is where true healing can happen.
Absolutely. But also, when we get frustrated, when we think like, no one's hearing me, no one's hearing me. Hold on. If you're not being heard by them, are you hearing yourself? What is it you're telling yourself that you're not hearing yourself? So we have this
Mm.
innate thing as young children when we're growing up that we have an expectation, and that's not wrong, that our caregivers, our parents, automatically know intuitively what we need. You know, we need feeding, we need a hug, we need love, we need nurturing. And if that doesn't happen for us, we don't we don't learn how to communicate that. So
Mm,
when we're unable to communicate it, we can get angry that others aren't understanding. But then it's about having that courage to turn it round and look at it and think, oh, can I listen to myself? Do I know what I
yeah,
want? If I don't know what I want or need, how can I expect someone else
yeah. But a lot of us, Bev, as well, I'm just reflecting now on what you're saying.
to?
We don't know what we need because we just maybe have never asked ourselves those questions in the first place. And no one's asked that of us. We just turn up in the world and we serve, we give, we're people pleasers. We don't actually ever put ourselves first because that is not been our reality. And even on my course, I'm asking my participants to do this for many of them for the very first time. And they find it difficult. They just don't know how to do it or what it means, what it looks like, what it feels like. So it can be very hard thing for them to even tune into before they even act upon it.
Absolutely. And you and I are one of people that we show what's on our face. So
Yeah,
I was just
unfortunately, sometimes.
I was just I was just thinking to myself, you know, if I was in one of your workshops years and years ago and how I'd be, but I'd be looking at you going, yeah, you want me to open up here in front of these, but I don't open up in front of myself. Like, because also the fear, whoa,
Yeah,
hold on, I don't want to go there. But also the not knowing, am I going to be silly? Because I don't know the answer. Because we always expect to know the answer straight away. However, I may say to you, like, I wouldn't tell you where to go, but I want to put my hand up and go, like, back off, right? But then I'd go away and it would be in my mind, and I'm a reflector. So even if they don't this week, for instance, like some information, they'll go away. And I'm a big believer that someday it will come out further down the line. There is
100%.
no, there is no like it happens then or it happens then.
Yeah. But as you know, the participants on my course and your clients that you work with, it's a matter of building that trust that they feel safe to engage. And they always, always have the choice not to engage and just do what is right for them. So, and that's all part of the pathway of learning, doing what is right for you and having the choice and the ability to respond in a different way than that was their reality growing up.
Absolutely. And the other thing is, we're very much brought up to what are we actually achieving? Well, no, forget about that. When we're being vulnerable, it's about well, everything we do. They're doing a tiny bit. The tiniest of bits will get the biggest result. So being vulnerable, we're not asking someone to put themselves in danger and open themselves up in a big way. What we're raising awareness of is like, yeah, it's scary. vulnerability for me is one of the hardest things and still one of the challenging things that even I have to learn on a different level. In any relationship, relationship with myself, with others, communicating with others. God, if I tell them, how are they going to respond to me? But it's also having that courage to just dip the toe in the water,
Yeah, there's a
Mhm.
few things that I've got written down on my paper, which just so everyone can see. Um, it's down to feeling safe to being vulnerable, whether it's being vulnerable to yourself or your loved ones or a therapist or a group or, one-to-one, whatever it is, the situation is. But often vulnerability in society in general is seen as a weakness, especially when it comes to men and boys can't show their emotions, and they're often brought up to that fact. You're strong, you're this, you're that, boys don't cry, get over it, get on with it, and even women and us girls who grow up obviously into women, we often find it difficult. But I do find in general that women are more empathetic, we do talk more, we do share more, whether that's I'm overgeneralizing, but in my circle that is what happens. What do you say about vulnerability being a weakness, and men and boys shouldn't be showing their emotions?
Well, isn't it funny? Because when my son was growing up as a teenager, and I didn't even think about it because then it was just coming up me. I remember him, him being shown how to use the washing machine, and he said, "That's not my job. I'm a boy. That's a
Hmm.
woman's job." I was like, straight away, I went, "Let me tell you one thing. A true man is someone who's able to be touching with his feminine side and his emotions. To me, a man isn't someone who stands there banging his chest and is not emotionally intelligent." And I didn't even think about that years ago.
Yeah.
Whereas now, it is about having that courage. It is about being honest about who you are, not about what you think needs to be said. And this is where we come on to a different vulnerability because we can think, or we can tell people we're vulnerable, but it's like anything, we've got to be able to feel it and be safe. Not, I've just said you've got to be able to, no one has got to do anything. But I believe that with true vulnerability, it's that time for reflection and knowing that you can hold yourself, knowing that you are going to trust in yourself about how far you can go. But there is a different side to you, vulnerability as well, which we spoke about before, which you're going to be bringing up.
Before we move on, though, I really want to send out a clear message that men and boys and men, have every right to show their emotions as girls and women. And there is no level, there is no competition, there is no this is right or wrong. It's just if you've been harmed, if you've been abused, there is impact, and you should be able to express that in any way you need to, as long as it's not obviously hurting other people and abusing other people, because that we can't condone, even if we might understand that some damaged people will go on and harm other people. It's still not acceptable.
And I always, when I look at men and boys, and I refer to this often when I'm speaking to males in different ways. I've signposted men that were in domestic abuse, but I give them, because we're always looking for evidence, and I talk about the footballers, when they first spoke about um, the abuse they've been through and the courage they had to be vulnerable, that made them, to me, bigger, stronger,
Yeah.
braver.
Yeah.
And for me, I use them all the time as an example to
Yeah.
men and say, look at these men. How do you think of them?
Yeah. Yeah.
And they, and,
100%.
and straight away, they've got someone that they can think, oh, they inspire me. And I think that's what it is. It's having people around you that inspire you.
Yeah. Yeah. So we wanted to bring up obviously vulnerability in from different perspectives, looking through different lenses. So we've got obviously two well-known names come up in the media recently, and continue to come up, and they are convicted perpetrators or have been sacked because of inappropriate behaviours. So you can read up about these two people. So it's Hugh Edwards and Philip Schofield. And the reason why I'm bringing up these two names, especially, let's go with Schofield for the beginning of this. He's obviously doing a Channel 5 documentary where he's on a island all by himself, but he's not all by himself because he's got his film crew there, but he's by himself, and he's being vulnerable and he's sharing his side of the story. So there's vulnerability.
And
How do you think about that?
straight away, I can really feel, like, I won't lie, I'm going to be very honest. I take a deep breath in because I can feel the anger rising in me.
Mm-hmm.
Because straight away I feel vulnerable, and so I get protected there because I'm getting protected of the feelings it's bringing up to me, because he's being vulnerable for a program. Now, is he going to be 100% honest, or is he going to say what he wants us to hear? That's my first question. I'll be honest, my vulnerability. Do I want to watch him so that I can hear him, I can watch his body language, I can see, are you truly vulnerable? Or if I watch him, am I being one of those people that he's playing to? And this is being honest in my vulnerability here. Do I want to hear it? Because how many people have I heard around me say, oh, but he's really good, he's a lovely presenter. He groomed that boy. He knew exactly what he was doing. And that's the impact on that young man, right? It's huge. And still,
Well,
we
we can think it's
allegedly.
huge, allegedly, yeah, in this particular case. But I've seen a few clips of Schofield, and basically he was saying what he did was wrong and he accepts that. So on a level, whatever he's facing up to, he knows that he was in the wrong. He knows that. And if we're really going to shine a light on the grooming process that leads to sexual abuse, exploitation, with consent in quotes, without consent, then we need to be showing the whole pathway and how it happens. And if anyone else is doing that right now, call it out. It's unacceptable. Yeah, it's
Absolutely.
unacceptable. So if you are doing that, stop doing it,
But al-
because you know different. So do different.
but also the bit, and this is about me being courageous in my vulnerability. To feel at the bottom of my throat because it's choking
Yeah,
me,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
Because he's saying, I know it was a silly mistake. I know it's wrong. Okay, where's your accountability?
Hmm. And you
And I
know
say it,
what? Sorry, carry
right,
on.
no, I'm trying to put this in words that because although we like to be authentic, we we do want to be fair, be seen to
Yeah,
be fair, because there's two sides to every story. But from a victim's driver, it's like this was so clearly grooming. He knew
yeah.
he was in the UK. He abused his power. He, you know,
Covered it up, Bev. He silenced
yeah,
everybody, took out NDAs.
exactly. He blatantly used his position and power, A, to do it, and then B, to shut up. And the bit that really gets me is people still want to see him back on TV, and they still feel sorry for him. Hold on a minute. He's a grown man. He knew what he was doing. How can you sympathise with him? So that's out of the three.
And you know what gets my throat, like it's sitting, mine is tightening up as well, is that obviously Channel 5 have seen this as a money spinner. because if they didn't, they wouldn't have him on. And also, they're giving him a platform to rebuild his career. What about the victim and survivors? Not of Philip Schofield, because we don't know about anyone else where he's concerned, but he's been given a platform to rebuild. What about the victim and survivors in many of these cases, where high profile cases, where they don't get a platform, an opportunity to rebuild because they don't have the money, they don't have the level of life that these other people have got, that have got power and got money.
But I want to challenge that about the victim, because we can't say that the young man is a victim. We don't know. So,
Yeah.
okay, we'll take it the other way. I'm a parent. How would I feel hearing that Philip Douglas is now saying that he knew it was wrong to have a relationship with my son who was young? That that I've got to live with that as a mum, as a father, as family, as a sibling. They are victims.
Yeah, yeah. And also, it's the grooming around, you know, even if it was a consensual, age appropriate relationship, let's just put that there. He still knew it was inappropriate, even if it was legal, and he groomed everyone around him into silence. So there was a knowing by many people that this was going on. So let's move away from him for a moment and let's go to a clear convicted person, Hugh Edwards.
Oh, for those watching, you just saw my face. I can't hide it. And for those listening, I did roll my eyes because
Yeah.
beyond, I'm either speechless or I am so angry. So I haven't been on social media for quite a while because I've had to really look after myself for different reasons, but this is one of them. And there was a woman who actually said that Hugh Edwards has obviously been set up, right? He's innocent. He's such a good man, and he was very good during, and I'm sorry to upset anyone, but he was very good presenter when the Queen passed away. And what? What about the children? What about the young
Yeah.
people? What about, and there are boys, I think the youngest one was 9 or 10, that he was involved with images. And as I educated before, and I'll do it again, he was sentenced at a magistrate's court. He would have been given legal advice. If you plead not guilty, you will go to Crown Court for a trial.
Yeah.
When you go to Crown Court, they have different powers of legislation and what
And
they
sentencing. Yeah.
sentencing. Yeah. Whereas if you've got the right legal advice, if you plead guilty, you go to magistrate.
Yeah.
The magistrate is still restricted. And if you don't believe me, go to the Guardian and I'll
Oh,
even
no,
find
it's
the link.
true. It's absolutely
I'll
true
put the
because
link
I've
in
been through the
underneath
court
it.
system.
Yeah. But there's actually a ex-magistrate that put a written an article for the
Yeah.
Guardian. And so, yes, he pleaded guilty, but he pleaded guilty to category A. And we've already spoken about this one, and I'll just say it very quickly. Category A is images, photographs, and videos that have been received and viewed, not just received and deleted, we're talking about received and viewed, and sometimes passed on, and you can only access these through the dark web most of the time as well. So it's not just a click open and that's it. So just want full knowledge here. And this is where there's penetration into a young person, okay, otherwise known as rape. And this is not consenting, and this is also for a young adult. So not, these are non-consenting images, okay. Someone has been abused in these. He pleaded guilty to that. He also pleaded guilty to category B. Category B is when it's not penetration, but it's still abuse, sexual abuse, something sexual in that. Okay, I don't need to go into more details at the moment, and I'm not going to do that. Category C, and he pleaded guilty to all of these. Category C are often seen as innocent photographs, but they use in the wrong context. Okay,
Hold
So,
that up to your mouth, please. Can't
oh,
hear you.
sorry. Oh, so they're used in the wrong context.
Yeah.
So they're innocent photos, but used in the wrong context. He pleaded guilty to all of these. He
Mm-hmm.
got a suspended sentence.
Sentence.
But not only that, he wasn't given any restrictions. So normally, when you're a sex offender, you are told that part of your condition is that you can't be in contact with any other sex offender. He wasn't given that, and the magistrate had the right to do that. So
And the
he
children as
also,
well, isn't it?
yeah, he also hasn't been restricted on any of his mobile phone usage and computer usage, which normally you are restricted. Yes, he'll go on the child register, right? And then when it's all been reported, we'd feel sorry for him because he's in an institution at the moment for his mental health.
I was just going to take it back to vulnerability because he's now showing the world he's got mental health issues, and who wouldn't if they were in his position?
Yes, so we'll take it to vulnerability. This is where vulnerability, is he truly vulnerable or is he using that in a different way? And this is where we get different messages of vulnerability. Because what about every child in those images? And I get so angry here when people go, oh yeah, but it's only pictures. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Let's look at those pictures. Just the pictures alone, okay? Those images will never be able to be removed. They're on the
Mm-hmm.
dark web. They are there for life. Imagine if that's your child growing up from 10, 11, or even 17, 18. They'll never be able to. They'll always be living there with that. That's without the actual abuse that they've received initially in pictures. So
And
don't tell me it's only pictures.
many victims and survivors of CSAM, child sexual abuse imagery, or even having photos uploaded, having an innocent picture changed so it now becomes an AI generated child sexual abuse image. All of that, those victims have said the fact that they have these images online, whether they get shown or not, in their head they're living with the fact that the next person that they come to in the street, that person might have seen their image. So they've got this constant baggage around them of shame and guilt and who's seen it, who hasn't, and that's an everyday impact.
They've been violated. They
Yeah,
have been
100%.
violated.
Yeah.
And so that's where vulnerability for me, when it's being used in the wrong way, no, that's not courage. That's not courage at all.
No, but the thing is, Bev, perpetrators of these vile crimes, okay, they may be using vulnerability to try and win around people in their circle. Or they genuinely may be very vulnerable because that's what's made them vulnerable, their crimes. And it's their guilt and their shame that's making them feel so vulnerable and, mentally unwell, emotionally upset, emotionally unstable. They've brought it on themselves.
They made choices.
100%.
But let's remember they're victims that didn't make choices.
100%. Yeah.
They didn't make choices. They didn't feel that they could make choices. They were groomed. They were too
Yeah.
young. They were coerced.
Yeah.
And
And
even
even,
sometimes, sorry, even sometimes some of the guilt about abuse is sometimes you choose to go back to, say, someone's house. That's all part of the grooming. And, we need to be more aware of the victims because it is the only crime where we question the victim. Are you a victim? We
yeah.
don't do that murder, doesn't matter how, you know, if someone's been murdered, they are the victim. You're looking for the murderer.
Yeah, yeah. If someone's been burgled, they've been burgled. You're looking for the burglar.
Yeah, you don't say, well, can you prove you've been, you know, it's just like, really sorry to hear you've been burgled. How must that feel? But we don't say that. about victims and survivors of sexual abuse because
Yeah.
the way we're brought up, the media,
So
how they turn it. Except
yeah.
for there is a woman at the moment
Yes.
who represents the power of vulnerability.
Hmm.
Chris, what's her name?
Her name is, if this is pronounced correctly, Giselle Pellicott.
Yeah. And not everyone might know, but she's a woman in her early 70s. That's all I'm going to say. And she's been married to this man for years. And it was the police who knocked on her door, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And told her that she was a victim of rape. She didn't believe it initially, but not just rape. And her husband has been drugging her for 10 years, raping her for
20, I think. No,
oh,
10. You're correct.
10, yeah,
Correct. Yeah.
10 years. But not only that, he'd been inviting up to 50 other men to come and rape her too when she's under the influence of drugs. She had no idea. Currently in court. Can you imagine? I mean, our whole world's just been ripped apart. But you know what that woman's done? Every day she goes into court, she walks in with her head high, right? She is showing her vulnerability, okay? It's out there to see. And the perpetrators themselves, and they'll never catch all of them, they are hiding their heads, and so they should, but they're covering their faces. And that's when I just think I admire her so much for her strength, her courage, but the courage to be vulnerable.
I mean, what this woman is allowed the world to see is how prevalent this thing, child sexual abuse, rape, sexual assault, how prevalent it is, and that a perpetrator can be anybody,
Anyone.
and often well respected, well known, well established, professional people. Yeah. When we go out there and say a perpetrator can be anybody, it's more likely to be someone you know. It's more likely going to be that upstanding member of the community. It's more likely going to be someone that works with children or who has access to children. Most of society will go, nah, you're talking rubbish. Well, this is a clear case of perpetrators can be anybody.
Absolutely. And that's all part of the grooming because everyone's going to, sadly, we all know someone. Well, not everyone knows someone that's been convicted of it, but we know, well, we do because there's some in the public eye. I'll be honest, Mal Harris, when it came out about Mal Harris, he was a childhood hero of mine. I was absolutely gutted. Like, not Mal
Hmm.
Harris,
I
but once he
know.
was convicted and I read everything, I was like, really?
Hmm.
Doesn't say I disbelieved the victim. I certainly didn't. It was just so heinous. It took a long time for me to actually absorb it and believe that the person that I'd admired as a child was actually a perpetrator and a vile perpetrator as well.
And of course, we've got Mohammed Al Fayed in the news at the moment this
Yeah.
week. That his victims, survivors, many of them spoken up before. The CPS, Crown Prosecution Service, has had 3 or 4 opportunities to bring him to accountability during his life while he was alive. Obviously, the man's dead now. And it's often when a well-known person or a rich person is dead that victim survivors come forward en masse because they can't then be defamed for bringing an allegation of abuse against this powerful, respected person.
But
So
sadly, but that gets questioned as well. Again, I'd
100%.
come off of this group. Someone said, "Oh, here we go, another powerful person that now is dead. They're coming out the woodwork. Why couldn't they speak up when he was alive?" Well, they tried.
Yeah, exactly.
They
Exactly.
tried.
And it's the institutions around these powerful people
Who are
that
complicit.
either they are complicit because they either know there's something in it for them because there's a working relationship there. You scratch my back, I scratch yours. Or they're so powerful that the institutions that should be taking the appropriate action, unless there is well-established evidence, i.e. like Pellicott and the videos of her being raped, that it's hard to get the case to court.
Yes.
And it's hard to actually progress with a case just because of that power and control element that is going on at different levels throughout these different institutions. And it does exist. You can see it.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So vulnerability, we've gone off in the different tangent there, as we always do. And that's why we wanted to speak about this, because vulnerability is different, you know, and it shows up in different people, and it's okay to be vulnerable. It's okay to be, you know, I've shown my emotions here about being angry. And Chris, I know you want to say something. You've got your hand up there.
So what I want to do is bring it back to the individual that's been harmed and being vulnerable when they know that the odds are stacked against them. So when they do speak up, when they feel that some action may be taken, and then they see that action, the appropriate action, is not being taken, or they see many cases being no further actioned, or they see that the case gets to court but the person doesn't get convicted because of a technicality, doesn't mean that the crime's not been committed. It doesn't mean that the victim and survivor is lying. It just means that they've got off on technicality, or there just is not enough tangible evidence, like in the Pellicott case, where there are videos of this poor woman being raped. There isn't that kind of evidence to get a case to court and get a conviction. So we're
Absolutely.
asking all of these individuals to be vulnerable, but when they've got all of that stacked against them, they're probably saying, why should I? Why
Yeah,
would I? Why
and
should I? Why would I?
and Chris, absolutely, because you've been through the court system, and I admire that, because I made the decision, even when my dad was alive, not to do it, because
Hmm.
I just thought I cannot have it coming into my family. And I knew I didn't have the evidence, although now, years and years later, he's dead. I've now found out there are more people. We would have, but I
Mm,
didn't know that back then,
no.
because even I believed that, okay, I knew it was me, I knew it may be one other person, but I've since found out it was more, and I
Yeah.
didn't know at that time. And it's only since I've been speaking out that
Hmm.
you find out that there's more, and that's what happens when one person speaks out, more do.
But also on that, Bev, okay, if I spoke to you about my abuser and you spoke to me about your abuser and they were the same abuser, we then both went to the police at the same time, that would be seen as that we've collaborated. Yep.
Yeah.
So the way that the police cases work and the investigations work is they often need to hear from really separate people who don't know each other, that will not be seen as collaborating, and whose stories are of similar experiences. So there is almost like a pattern of behavior of grooming, of abusing. And the more that you get different people coming together, going to the police, making different reports, then that is seen as independent testimony that will stand up in a court. But when
Yes.
it came from my family, all of us going to the police together and going, duh, 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 that is seen as sort of like a collaboration, even though we want.
Yes, absolutely. And this is what's so challenging in any sexual abuse case, because there's a
Yeah,
legal requirement,
yeah,
and then there's a, let's say, personal impact, but there's always personal impact in
yeah.
crime. But it's that lack of understanding, and that's why we want to share this. So whoever's listening, first of all, please Be careful of yourself today. Self-care, as we always speak about it. I'm going to go off and release some of this because I was in a different place and now we've obviously had this conversation and we've been vulnerable. Yeah, we've had the courage to be vulnerable, but we have to look after ourselves, same as everyone else. And if any of you have any questions, please email us at BreakingTheCycleToStepForward@gmail.com. The link is below either the video or the podcast that you're listening to. And if you have any questions, please just email us. And it's getting a bit windy here, so if you're watching, the camera's shaking a little bit, just to show we're authentic in what we do.
And I just want to share with everybody that we've got some great guests lined up on future podcasts. And if they want to be a guest, then to write into us too and just share with us what is it they want to talk about so that we can match up topics and guests for the future.
Absolutely. So thank you everyone for listening or watching. Chris, lovely to see you. I will be embracing the weather when I come back, but for now, for today, I'm going to go off and relax,
Enjoy
recharge.
your sunshine.
Yeah, and goodbye, everybody.
Bye, everyone. See you next time. Take care.